You know the phrase, when all you have is a hammer, everything around you looks like a nail? It's a clever way of saying that the tools we have at our disposal can fundamentally change the way we see the world, for better and for worse. And I've seen a lot of makerspaces in my life and seen a lot of amazing tools, but the space we're visiting today is special in a unique way in that it has been designed from the ground up itself as a kind of tool whose primary focus is social impact. Incite Focus is a place where people in their community can go and use available systems, technologies, and materials to develop products and systems that will fundamentally affect and improve the lives of themselves and their communities. That sounds like a lot, but they're starting with simple things like micro-housing and open source table design. Let's check it out. Blair, talk to me about Incite Focus. What is this organization and what's going on?
Incite Focus is it's a multidisciplinary organization. Kind of legally, it's a low-profit limited liability corporation, a social benefit kind of an L3C. Mm-hmm. Practically speaking, it actually emerged out of trying to make education and community development kind of align in a way that benefited each other. And so we've been in this location for about 7 years. And our emphasis is on being able to create things in the world that can meaningfully change people's lives. And so we kind of built the making things part into two pieces. We have the natural environment and the built environment. So we have a permaculture agroecology program on the natural systems part. We have a digital fabrication lab, a fab lab on the built environment part. They kind of cross over a little bit with biomimicry and the ethical framework of managing supply chains that come out of permaculture that you can apply to the digital fabrication piece. So it's kind of a balanced thinking way of approaching things. And kind of the third leg of the stool is kind of social enterprise. So what are the social and economic systems that allow you to take those skill sets and not just utilize your time for someone else's benefit, but actually create value and wealth in the community that you're a part of to be able to turn some vicious cycles that a lot of people are involved in into virtuous cycles. So that's kind of what we're about.
So it's a makerspace, but with a really focused goal towards putting back into the community and helping those who are participating in it.
Exactly.
Do you have a standard, I'm assuming a standard complement of your basic makerspace tools?
Yes, we do. Then we also have some other different kinds of mills, and we're involved in a process of experimenting with how to make different machines given the machines that we have here. So we're starting to work on that kind of Fab Lab 2.0 version where we're making the guts of being able to make our own machines custom to the purposes at hand.
So the machines could start making the machines?
Yes, and hopefully democratize access to it.
Yeah.
If you have a lab in some place, most of the stuff you make the equipment out of is commonly available.
Right.
So it allows you to kind of multiply this quite a bit and also drive the cost down. And also allow people, again, in the machines to make things using supply chains where they understand what communities were impacted upstream by gathering the materials, and they understand what communities are going to be impacted downstream by disposing of this stuff. So it allows people to kind of operate in a way that's consistent with the way they want to view and live life. Yeah.
So I've visited a lot of makerspaces around the country in the last year, and I've seen a lot of things that they make, but we're standing in front of one of the larger projects I've seen come out of a makerspace, and this is my favorite sign that I have seen on anything. I almost want this to be a T-shirt. What are we standing in front of?
Okay, so the sign is for two purposes. One is we put this massive thing right in the middle of the lab, so it is actually an apology to people relative to taking up this much space, but it's actually a fairly important thing. And so what we're standing in front of is our mock-up of the interior of a micro cabin. So it's an 8 by 8 foot exterior, and it's designed to be completely functional in terms of sleeping space, sanitation space, a shower, bathroom, kitchen space, etc., with a design that can be essentially net zero energy in a Michigan climate.
Oh, wow.
And to be able to have gray water systems and some rainwater collection, but also composting toilets and the like in the mix. And so, it's important for us. One is because a lot of people don't have access to housing. But another piece is that there's a lot of affordable housing that's not affordable to continue to live in. I've heard statistics that in many cities, Detroit included, more people lose the ability to live in their houses because they can't keep up with the utilities and repair costs than because of anything else.
Right.
And so getting into something cheap does not mean that you're on easy street in terms of continuing things. So if somebody has an ability to put some sweat equity into building their own house that can have minimal ongoing demands, the 50 to 70% of a low to moderate income person's salary that goes into paying for rent, utilities, mortgage.
Yeah.
Translate that into time. That's 50 to 70% of your time that you can get back to do things like investing in yourself, investing in your family, investing in community dynamics, etc.
Being part of your neighborhood.
Absolutely. So, the key part of the project is to develop the smallest viable version of what we hope will be a series of opportunities for people to participate in rebuilding their communities in ways that have different functional dynamics, not just a different physical structure.
Can we see it?
Absolutely. The grand unveil? Yeah. So here's so this is the kind of interior prototype of the micro cabin. And so all of this was fabricated, in the Fab Lab.
Right,
all the
right.
cabinets were designed. Actually, the shower head was 3D printed.
Oh, look at that.
And all of the shower components were cut out. And the curtains are here to allow people to spend time in the space and actually get the feel for what it's like.
For what it would be
So
like.
the point of this is kind of the minimum viable product for the interior to allow people to spend time, tweak and adjust. And so we'll come up with something that makes sense to really start propagating from there.
Right.
And so, the bed frame and everything is kind of fabricated.
So it's not just a housing solution. This is actually the first of a set of housing solutions and a working prototype.
Right.
And you guys are building I'm curious because I don't actually see the toilet.
The toilet, this will be kind of like in a boat. The composting toilet will be it'll be a wet bath. So it'll be in the shower unit to save space. So it'll be a seat in the shower at the same time as it's the toilet unit. And again, very much like a head in a boat.
And you guys are building these things right on site with the tools you have here.
Yes. And we, this will be on a trailer. We have another location in Midtown that actually has a loading dock and some other doors and the like, which will be more the production-oriented location. And, we'd be on the register as a RV manufacturer in the process so that people could actually finance and insure this once it's produced.
Oh, right.
Which allows you to have some more stability in your life rather than kind of living in something which is legal but doesn't necessarily allow you to tap into the risk management strategies that normal people kind of tap into, right?
Right.
So the whole structure of this is designed to be compliant with building code also in terms of the way the frame will go together. And so it's not necessary for an RV, but if we scale from 64 square feet to 160 to 400 and put a 400 on the foundation, the skills that people learn in building this will be actually transferable into something that's code compliant and you can get a certificate of occupancy for.
And you said sweat equity. So your idea is that people living in these spaces will also be participating in constructing them.
Absolutely. And it may be directly constructing your own, or it may be giving back and being part of the process to help other people build their houses as they helped you build yours as you upskill in the process of doing it.
That's right. Where are you within this project? Are people living in these yet, or
no? We expect to have one functionally being used as a seasonal residence in northern Michigan by the end of June.
Wow!
And that gives us kind of an opportunity to get some exposure with people in an area that's expected to be somewhat rustic and work out the kinks.
Right.
And then, by the fall, have enough iterations of kind of building and design where we're comfortable actually having them on the ground for people, living in them and depending on them.
That's exciting and terrifying.
It is. Right.
So am I right that we are going to construct a part of one of these spaces?
So we're going to start kind of transitioning from the interior to the exterior.
Okay.
And so part of the process for this is to not require a tremendous amount of skilled trade in the process of putting this together. And so the structure of this will be a framed wall, top plate, bottom plate studs with insulation on the interior.
When you guys are actually cutting.
Exactly. Self-aligning.
Oh, wow. Right. So this is being done on the router.
Right. And so here's the top or the bottom plate. So each of these tab into here.
Right into
And then there are indents for the screws to go in. And so it all self-aligns. You don't need levels or tape measures or whatever to figure out where to do things.
That's amazing.
And so that eases the process, obviously, of putting these together. And we're actually writing an app. So if you specify the dimensions of this, it'll compile all of this out. And so you'll get the cut program for, your framing system directly out of that.
So in the future, you could almost put in how much material you have, and it'll tell you how much of space you could build.
That's true. That's another way of going into it, right? And I mean, ultimately, what we like to do is to go in and specify the space planning, and then actually have the cabinets compiled out and whether the bed folds up or not and those kind of things. I mean, that's not iteration 1, but by iteration 3 and 4, the point is to be go in to be able to conceptually design your house and to be able to compile that down to actually the cut pattern and the bill of materials for everything that goes into it, including a sequence of construction tasks.
Is all this open source? Is that the goal?
Yeah.
So you can share this and people can do this all over the world.
Right. And so, yeah, the point of this is to make it accessible. You know, some people will want to take the next level, and so we can kind of get you into not only how to code the apps, but how to use the traditional CAD, CAM workflow to do it. But that's kind of forbidding for somebody who's just kind of getting into it, who just wants to kind of get things done. We have most of the pieces pre-cut because we figured you didn't want to stand around watching us cut out the whole framing system. But
I love the smell of sawdust.
I did leave one piece to still be cut, so we can kind of get an idea of what the process is for cutting one of these. So we might want to knock out the last stud, and then we can go and actually start framing up the wall system from there.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, so let's grab some wood.
All right.
Reasonably good. No staples. Okay. So, yeah, this is some basic fixturing that we put together to hold
look at that.
hold and align the 2x4. And the alignment is not super critical because we got a little bit extra to work with.
Oh, so it'll actually cut the end off.
Right.
I see. Okay.
Yep. Let me get my hearing protecting on.
Okay.
It's about right at a 0 point.
Mm-hmm. Is that a hole for electrical?
It's the time it takes to prep a stud.
That's amazing. Ah, look at that. Just 2 passes.
Yep. All right. Now, is that the way they work this? Okay. All right, our final stud for the mix. Okay, so our assembly is going to kind of follow this setup with the bottom and top, and then the studs that are spaced in the slots, and then we're going to screw them in. I don't like having nail guns in the lab. If we're going to be in production on this, I probably would nail them as opposed to screw them.
Sure.
But people find amazing ways to do crazy stuff with nail guns.
I have seen the same thing.
So we're going to stick with structural screws in the process of doing this. Ones that are not brittle but that are heat treated.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got top and bottom plates that we cut. So we're going to go 7 feet this way and 8 feet this way. So why don't we keep these aligned this way?
Okay.
And I think that'll give us the best amount of working room. So we can leave that plate there. And then let's keep our electrical channel down on this end.
All right.
Kind of line these up. Given the engineering type I am, I love to do things the first time. I hate to do things the second, third, and fourth time. I'm ready to move on to the next problem.
All I want to
So-
do is make the first prototype.
Right.
I'm the same way.
So what I'd love to do is to kind of demonstrate the first joint and then hand it off
Okay.
to kind of complete the process.
By all
And
means.
so why don't we kind of do the first one or two, and then we'll hand over the screw guns. I think we have bits in both of these, yeah,
Okay.
that are set up to work. If you like that one, that's fine. If you want one with a clutch on it, that works also.
Oh, this is fine, as long
Okay.
as it'll drive it.
And so I can start on this end, and perhaps you start on that end.
Okay.
And there are dimples kind of built in.
Oh, look at that. There's already a hole for the screw.
Hopefully as foolproof as possible, so.
Awesome.
All right. No T-squares, no tape measures, no whatever. Follow the slots, hit the holes, and it'll be right.
That is
All right.
beautiful.
You might as well finish it out, Adam.
So we actually might want to remove these from the middle because they're going to start, or at least lean them up a little bit so they're not stopping the other ones from kind of coming together until all the tabs are set.
Right, so how do you do that?
And so, why don't you do all of the bottoms, and then we'll kind of do the tops.
I see.
Because obviously, if you put this one in, it's going to lock all the rest of them down. So, yeah. These are cut pretty much to fit. But if you need a little tap, you can feel free to use a rubber mallet to... yeah. So let me brace this in if you want to tap that in. The screws will pull them in also. Right? Yeah. The rest of it, the screws will pull in when you start kind of driving them. So the only thing you kind of want to make sure is that you're not starting to screw off at too much of an angle so it exits the side of the 2x4. So if this were done with, this is on 24 on center.
Right.
So if this were done with 2x6s, this would be code compliant as advanced framing. Since it's a very small structure, it doesn't have a huge amount of, doesn't have a second story, doesn't have a huge amount of load,
It
etc.
doesn't need 16 inches.
And we're going to have the sheeting that's continually applied to the whole piece. So
Oh,
the
okay.
strength, we really don't need it. And for RV manufacturing, it's not a requirement.
Sure.
But we have some 2x6s that are cut up there. And again, it's usually exactly the same system. You're code compliant at that point. So the technique is, and that's when we want to make sure people understand how to do it
Right,
and
right.
exactly the way that works.
And is the shop bot also cutting out the panels that skin it?
I mean, and the only way you need to do that is when you have windows and details, right?
Right.
And so we didn't bother on this one. You know, on the one that's set up with the 2x6s.
Oh, pockets.
So in case you're not going to build it on the floor and stand it up, but you're going to toenail it, you can directly go into the predefined pockets and make sure that you have your 4 nails at the right spacing, which is also code compliant. So it doesn't allow you to make a mistake, right?
That's really cool.
Right.
I just started using pockets in my shop, and they've changed my life.
Okay.
I love this.
Bill Young at ShopBot turned us on to that process. And, you know, he's done a lot of work, obviously, with ShopBots and with housing and the like. So
Yeah.
we try to use as many lessons learned and not go down blind alleys. So we
Right.
got a lot of help from different people in thinking about how to put the different systems together.
So it's just starting to sink into me how complex this computer program needs to be to make this simple. Like you have windows and electrics and water, placement of all these different things, the cabinets and the bed, and the program figures it all out and cuts all the pieces of wood to the exact specs.
With layers. So the
Right.
lowest layer, which is, what you'll take a glance at here, is just if this is a framing you want to do, here's how the framing works. And the next one kind of overlays the infrastructure with that, which then feeds into that. Then the next one kind of does your space planning that feeds into that feeds into the other. So as with everything, you kind of build it layer by layer. You all
That's-
finish that fast?
That's amazing.
Y'all don't play around. Okay.
Which is
So-
the bottom? This is the bottom.
That would be the bottom, because this is, the electrical channel would be about outlet height if we stand it up this way, right?
So we stand it?
So in this setting, this will be either the front wall or the back wall.
All right.
And you probably noticed that all of the mechanical infrastructure is on one wall in here. So all of the plumbing,
Right.
all of the essential electrical and is in one place. So we, really we can do that in a prefab way and get a lot of the things set up. So
By all
really,
means.
when you're knocking it up outside, the rest of it works. These two walls will have doors and windows and the like, so we'll do some additional framing in those to kind of go. But this we'll use for either the front wall or the back wall as we integrate this onto the trailer and go forward.
That's really cool.
And so we'll, again, insulate this with 3.5 inches of insulation. The nice thing about being 24 on center is that each one of these is a pathway to conduct heat.
Right.
No matter how much insulation you put in here, each one of these is still conducting heat through. So going out to 24 not only saves weight, but it saves a lot of thermal
It's
breaching.
more, and it's enough that it's measurable difference in thermal conductivity.
Right.
Wow.
And then in this format, you're also putting continuous insulation on the outside. So even those areas that you do have a thermal break, you have another 1.5 inches on the outside, which is cutting that down.
And that's both keeping it cool in the summer and warm in the winter.
Right. And you get to the point where that extra investment in insulation allows you to eliminate investment in heating and cooling systems. So you end up saving money, spend a little bit more here and save more on the other end.
A
And that
lot
gets
more.
back to that integrated design approach. So, mechanical systems we're going to be working on are the heat exchanger for the air transfer and some of those pieces to integrate in. We're fooling around with some biodigesters for some gas, which you may use for outside grilling or those kind of things. And the area on the front that has a tongue will have the batteries and that kind of thing. The roof is pretty much a flat roof with a very small rounding, and that's really there just to make sure if it flattens at all, it never becomes concave, right? So it's a very, very small. But that allows us to have a lot of flexibility in the solar thermal and the photovoltaic systems that are on the roof, because you don't have a pitch that you have to always align with in order to make it work. You can go someplace, set up, and then adjust and tune things. So we're in the process of cranking those together, and over the next 6 weeks, we should have all of those mechanical systems integrated into the first unit that our very adventurous test subject will begin to live in, and we'll work out the additional details.
And you said you have some acres right in the middle of Detroit where you're going to start testing some of these out. Is that right?
Yep. So to start out with, we actually have a very specific demand in northern Michigan. There's a place that we have a campground, and we are doing some economic and social development up there also. And that being a rustic setting on a beautiful lake out in the woods, people expect to spend most of their time outside, not inside.
Right,
So this is an
right,
excellent transition for that. This will be a good training component. I expect in the city of Detroit, most folks will be living in not the 8x8, but the 8x20, which is actually, hopefully, you can pop in a year and we'll have a good 8x20 to kind of take a look at, or I can send you some
really
photos
look
of
forward
it.
to that.
And that's what will begin to populate
Yeah.
some of the communities in the city of Detroit, right? And then moving up to 400 square feet from there and then continuing. Yep. So we have the groundwork done. I think we have the real estate assets. We have a lot of community interest in different ways of life. And we have some practical projects that people can engage in to, again, not just get involved in making, but actually do things that then allow them to have a different life experience, to be able to spend more time doing things, which might include making other things kind of going forward. So hopefully we're kickstarting a pretty virtuous cycle that'll be able to have some real life-changing results from the people who are participating. So I'm excited about the progress that's being made. And the next steps are the really exciting pieces where, you do all of the final refinement. I'm definitely going to be spending time in one of these in the northern areas
Just to experience it and understand it from the ground.
And it gives me an opportunity to have something really small to tuck into some really nice areas and actually spend time there.
Sure.
Right? So, I mean, yeah, it's not just having to do it, but it's an opportunity to be able to enjoy some really nice outdoor spaces with the minimum amount of stuff necessary to have all your creature comforts at the same time.
What's the biggest hurdle?
Biggest hurdle is we've never done it like this before. And so folks are used to, I mean, the building code allows you to do things a lot of different ways, but people are used to seeing things a very specific way. And each time you have to go back and prove that this is actually allowed, and that's a high hurdle to actually have to pass. So a lot of the difficulty is that, it's not illegal, but it's never been done before, and if you're trying to overlap with 5 different systems and have everybody look at this differently at the same time, that's pretty significant. And we're in it for the long haul. So this is obviously not going to be the perfect first iteration, but it will be reasonable. We're into, minimal viable products and iteration and testing and test-driven design and test-driven fabrication. They have the ability to make each one different. You can learn from each experience and continue to refine and make it happen. The same thing in economic and the social systems. And we understand we're getting into a massive system co-design project, and I'm loving it because that's exactly what we need to be doing.
Right.
And we have the pieces to be able to engage in that. Again, never mistake a clear vision for a short distance. And so, it's going to take some work, and it's going to take some people willing to take a chance and work with the process of co-developing and co-designing how a person wants to live, what the technology does for that, et cetera, along the way.
So who's going to be using this housing? How are you finding people to occupy?
So I think there are a couple different pathways. One is some people have found out about it and just said, I want one. And so we will probably have some graduating classes coming out of a registered apprenticeship program that we have that teaches these skills that will go into a worker cooperative, which will hopefully be our RVIA certified RV manufacturer who can actually produce and sell products to those paying customers who just say, I've been dying to have something like this. So that's one avenue. Another is, those people who don't have and don't want the overhead associated with having to work this hard to support all this infrastructure associated with the place that I live, because the place that I live isn't that important.
You mean taking 4 jobs to live in a house you don't spend any time in?
Right.
Yeah.
And, carrying around a lot of dead space that I use once every 2 or 3 years and, paying a lot of energy costs and the like in ways that are inconsistent with, the way that I'd like to live. But there are also groups of folks that we're talking with. I mean, they're returning veterans who need an opportunity to reestablish social participation in some way. So if we could have an intentional community where they could participate in not just building and living in the housing, but governing that community, allows them to kind of get back into the swing of civic participation. There's probably 5 different kind of birds of a feather affinity groups who are interested in establishing some collaborative way of living. And if they can build their own, manage their own, maintain their own, and if they don't have this huge cost of paying for outside infrastructure, then they can spend their time working on figuring out how to change the world in the ways that they want to see it move.
So with the goal towards creating community-involved housing and communities, this could go far beyond anything that has been currently ideated.
That's the expectation.
It could have, it could continue and have a totally different life than you expect.
Absolutely. I believe that we have thought about a lot of things that are significantly important with this. But I know that's 5% of what clever people will think about if they have some different set of tools and opportunities to work with.
Right.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what that is. And just giving out with this, we're going to get back a lot of what improvements are with this, or how this can be integrated with different ways, or how you can work with zoning to make things happen. That whole open source methodology, you certainly get back as much or more than you put in. And in this setting where there's some wickedly difficult problems, it needs a whole lot of very creative people who have a different types of intelligences working on that.
And as it moves to other cities and other countries, there will be other problems and other solutions and other avenues and pathways.
Absolutely. And each one of those also is a different lens into the same problem they're all working on. It's just a different part of it is exposed in different settings.
That's really, really exciting.
Yeah. So that's what's keeping us up at night here. And that's what the focus and energy is going into.
It's really worthwhile. Blair, thank you so much for taking the time to show this amazing project. Let me get my hands a little dirty, and I look forward to coming back and seeing one in situ.
Excellent. I appreciate the assistance this time through, and you have an open invitation to watch this interesting problem and situation unfold over the next year or two.
I will take you up on that.
All right, look
Thank
forward
you.
to it.